Since this includes a product review, let me emphasize that there is no affiliate link, I'm not sponsored, and this channel isn't monetized in any way. When the Beyond was first announced, it was disruptive because it was very different from any other VR headset on the market. And when something is that different, it takes a while to sink in because it reframes how everything else is viewed. I was on my third VR headset in a progression of ever larger and heavier headsets because that was just the reality of the market. Until it wasn't. I've had my Beyond for 16 months, and for me the form factor, weight, and micro OLED displays were a revolution. But there were compromises. And as much as I've loved the headset, the reality is I've always had to recommend it with a list of conditional issues that could be deal breakers for some people. And within the sim racing community, I knew a number of people who tried the Beyond and returned it. Mostly this was because of edge-to-edge sharpness or glare. Some spent a chunk of time exchanging their headsets to get the right IPD. While some loved it as much as I did, it was painful to see the number who did not. The Beyond 2 changes all that. But it did much more. It completely changed my understanding of the optical limitations that I thought they were bound by. I assumed it would take a larger micro OLED display and larger pancake lenses to be able to do what they've done now. We've reached a critical milestone years ahead of my expectations, and I believe it completely changes the landscape of PC VR headsets going forward by proving that a small micro OLED display is ready for mainstream adoption. 2025 is the inflection point for micro OLED dominance. To talk about the Beyond 2, we need to start with the pain points of the original Beyond. Most importantly, it was customized for a single person. It had fixed IPD, required a facial scan to create a custom cushion to line up your eyeballs with a very small in-focus area of the lenses to get perfect alignment. This made sharing your Beyond nearly impossible and also made resale harder. They've taken care of the first two of those issues at launch. The IPD is now adjustable per eye. Their new pancake lenses have a larger eye box that's in focus, and it adds the needed wiggle room needed for a generic interface to work. Finally, there's a halo mount and light shield coming to provide a generic interface. But you can also take the existing Beyond's custom cushion and audio strap and use them with Beyond 2. This adds a lot of flexibility and caters to different preferences. I can continue to use my cushion, which holds the headset perfectly in place when I whip my head around in games, while people who'd prefer the headset float in front of their face can get the halo strap. I can also get the halo strap for my headset, and then my wife and visitors can try it out, and then I can pop my cushion back in when I'm using. Win-win. Okay, so they took care of the main pain points. What about the compromises in the pancake lenses? Many have made comments saying if only the Beyond had lenses like the Quest 3, it would be perfect. Well, the new pancake lenses are now larger on the inside to capture more light and detail from the same displays. The lenses increased the size of the field of view substantially while making the view brighter. The new lenses dramatically reduce glare and have much, much sharper edge-to-edge clarity. I've only seen this pre-production unit, and the final production copy should be as good or better than what I've been using. So what does this buy you in real numbers? The largest WIM FOV measurement I've seen was 96 vertical by 108 horizontal. The majority of people with these pre-production headsets, including me, got 106 degrees of horizontal field of view. And my binocular overlap was within 0.4 degrees of my original Beyond. So that's about the same for me. To put this in perspective, that's more horizontal field of view than most people get with a Pimax Crystal or Crystal Light at a small fraction of the weight. But it actually gets better. The field of view in binocular overlap is less like a circle and more like a four-leaf clover. It extends into the corners. So you have more usable field of view in binocular overlap area. When looking down at cockpit controls or into a corner when racing, the corners are sharp and visible. The fact the field of view measurements from WIM FOV are actually picking the dips at 0, 90, 180, and 270 degrees, which are the smallest values. What's funny is I've seen some people complain about this non-circular pattern, but in reality it works great and adds more area to your field of view and binocular overlap. So people said they wanted eye tracking for VR chat and dynamic foveated rendering. And the Beyond 2 now has that as an option, if you want it. The kicker is even with larger lenses, individual adjustable IPD per eye, and eye tracking, it's lighter than the original Beyond. They list a production version at 107 grams versus 125 grams. This matches my pre-production headset. Personally, I couldn't feel the weight difference wearing mine with a cushion. It's already very light. But with that lower weight and lower inertia, a halo mount has a lot less effort to keep it in place on your face. So I'm expecting that it will hold well with the halo strap. So I consider the following very important. What they did was take everything they learned and used and fixed the pain points, added the features people asked for, and refined things that were already good. What they didn't do was get into the megapixel wars. They kept the existing display that current GPUs can actually drive today to keep the price, weight, and size down. We get a lot more usable sharp field of view from edge to edge, and it's not costing more in terms of GPU load. This was all done by improving the optics. That's the way to do things in a way that benefits everyone. This is a cake and eat it situation. The render resolution is the same, but it looks a whole lot better. And since they support AMD, it also means that a 7900 XTX would be a great option versus some of the unobtainium NVIDIA GPUs today. I'm running a 4090 and I've had it for over 2 years. And I've already mentioned not wanting to buy a 5090. So I'm covered. Now let's talk about their announcement. And notice I didn't say pre-announcement. They waited until they were ready to take orders, not pre-orders, for headsets that they would start shipping the following month. And that's initially without eye tracking, and with eye tracking 2 months later. To say I agree with their decision-making surrounding creating the Beyond 2 the way they did is an understatement. They took everything that was good about it and made it better. It's lighter, brighter, more feature-rich, eliminating the largest pain points while dramatically improving the optics at nearly the same price point as the Beyond 1. The result is the Beyond 2 has become a much better all-around VR headset with very respectable numbers to go along with the comfort. Let me dive into what I saw in A/B testing between the original Beyond and the Beyond 2 so it's more obvious where the differences are. Let's start with the out-of-box experience. When I got my Beyond 2 out of the box, the first thing I had to do was adjust the IPD. There are clear IPD markers on the inside and outside of each lens, and there's a tool that you use to adjust the IPD one eye at the time. The design is obviously size and weight driven. It's not as simple as a single thumb slider, but the action is very smooth, precise, and well dampened, and it doesn't move after it's set. I've also been told it's extremely durable and will hold up to substantial use. Once you have the IPD adjusted, you set the IPD to match in the driver software and restart SteamVR. After doing that, I dropped my existing cushion into the headset, snapped my audio strap on, and bound my hand controllers to the headset and started to try it out. I did notice my eyelashes were just barely touching the lens, and the Beyond 2 has the lenses about 1 millimeter closer to your eyeball than the original Beyond. Now, in order to fix this, I simply took some 1 millimeter by 3 millimeter magnets, and I still have no light leakage, and I had a perfect fit. And that's using my thin cushion. My thick cushion, which is 4 millimeters thicker, had no issues at all, but I preferred being closer to the lenses, so I threw the magnets on the thin lenses. Most of the original cushions that came with people's Beyonds were thicker than the thin cushions are. So for most people, adding magnets won't be an issue. And of course, if you're ordering new, I'm sure they take this into account when they create a new custom cushion for you. So let's talk about glare. It was a deal breaker with the original Beyond for a lot of people. I noticed it, but only in areas like setup screens, flash panels, and a few other areas. In game, it wasn't so much, but I did see it. It's much better now. For some things, like the iRacing setup screens where glare used to jump out at me, I don't see any at all. The very worst glare that I saw was in one game that I play a lot. There's a particular place where you are for 1 minute right before you get to an end boss that has a very bright torch up in a high place in an extremely dark place. With the original Beyond, the bottom quarter to a third of the screen was like a big smear. In this really demanding scene, I see 2 small semicircles and a couple small spots rather than the entire thing. It's dramatically different. And this is, I think, the worst scene that I have seen in all my titles, and it is noticeable, but it's tiny. And the rest of the time, I don't see it at all. So in most games, I don't notice glare in game. And I tried the Beyond 2 in iRacing during the day and at night. I tried it in DCS during the day in a Huey, and at night in an Apache AH64, and a pile of different games. Beat Saber, Half-Life Alyx, In Death, Vertigo 2, etc. Other than that one scene in that one game where it really jumps out at me, and some flash screens, I'm not seeing glare in game at all. It also looks brighter at the same brightness levels than the original Beyond, and it can be driven brighter. For the Apache at night, I did turn down the brightness, but not because of glare. In that cockpit, which is all green displays, glowing at night, and with a heads-up display following every head movement, I saw a little persistence until I turned the brightness down a bit. This is something you can easily adjust with the Beyond driver, and it can be tweaked at any time without exiting a title. So it wasn't a big deal, and then everything looked great. That's the only time that I noticed persistence, was in that extreme. It's jet black at night, and all I had were glowing displays in front of me. Otherwise, it's not something I've noticed in games. The absolute biggest difference that I noticed was the increased field of view combined with much better edge-to-edge clarity, which allows your eyes to be much more productive looking around. In first-person shooter games, I was more situationally aware, and I was shooting a lot more accurately, which surprised me at first. The Beyond has always been very easy to move your head around with, but now I can clearly see targets by glancing with my eyes, and I'm aiming as I'm moving my head in that direction, lining up my shot the whole time. So I'm getting better accuracy and shooting more frequently off to the side when my head isn't pointing straight at a target in an area that used to be out of focus. And since the head stays absolutely put, the view is perfectly sharp the whole time, and I don't worry about the headset settling after I whip my head around. In iRacing, I could read all my black boxes at a glance with my eyes without moving my head at all. In an airplane cockpit, I could read a lot more displays without moving my head. I could read into the corners. Because it is brighter from the lenses capturing more light, if persistence is an issue for you, you can drop the panel brightness percentage further than the original Beyond to get the same brightness but less persistence. The fact that they could make the Beyond 2 a solid all-around headset that could be run off existing GPUs and have better field of view with sharp edge-to-edge clarity and no eyeball swim or distortions like aspheric lenses is a huge step forward in such a small form factor. In the context of the timing of the announcement and considering the good press the MagnaX was getting, I was impressed that rather than pre-announcing their new headset to steal MagnaX's thunder well before they were ready, they waited until their own product was ready to ship. Kudos for that. To some of us, that type of messaging matters. Speaking of the MagnaX Superlight 8K, I still think it looks like a good headset. Comparing the MagnaX to the Beyond 2 will depend on your priorities. So I could understand going either way. The MagnaX has 100% binocular overlap, higher resolution, especially at 90 Hz with the Beyond 2 still has additional compression. I understand it has less persistent and a bit less glare. Their field of view is more vertical. They have a halo mount available now and an audio solution coming. They also have a diopter adjustments if you have a use for them. I've heard PPD values somewhere in the range of 39 to 42 being tossed around. And for reading text or using in place of a monitor, I think it would work really well. And some may like it overall. I haven't experienced it yet, but I understand the 100% binocular overlap is very comfortable. The Beyond 2 by comparison is smaller, lighter, has 10 to 12 degrees more horizontal field of view, better edge-to-edge clarity, a better distortion profile, optional eye tracking, is less expensive, has a smaller rendering resolution, hand controllers bind directly to the headset rather than requiring a USB fob. The USB plug is placed better on the Beyond so that if you plug in a DAC amp like I use and use wired microphones, it doesn't hang in your face like it does in the MagnaX for first-person shooter games. The Beyond also has an audio strap now, and it supports AMD GPUs now. The Halo mount is coming, and the Beyonds have a return policy as well, which the MagnaX doesn't have. I think they both have a place in the market. For me, the field of view and edge-to-edge clarity are enough to convince me, and I've already ordered a Beyond 2E. This is despite me saying earlier that I was not going to upgrade my existing headset. I have to admit, I was blindsided by the Beyond 2. After experiencing it, I hate to say I couldn't go back to the original Beyond. It really is a night or day difference, and it removes all the key compromises between it and larger headsets while still being ultra lightweight and comfortable. The eye tracking I got just in case, despite there being little support for DFR right now. Now let's compare the Beyond 2 with larger headsets. It's no longer a compromised headset because of the optics. The differences between it and full-size headsets is no longer edge-to-edge clarity and field of view or unacceptable glare. If anything, the edge-to-edge clarity is better because there's no pupil swim or lens distortions. This thing is nearly perfectly rectilinear. It also has no moire or other artifacts from many LEDs. And of course, it has deep micro OLED blacks and great color. The glare is more in line with the Quest 3, which many have considered a benchmark for pancake lenses. They're still using the same displays, and so there is still the additional compression visible at 90 Hz. There's still no perfect headsets, but to me the Beyond 2 is the right now headset that can be driven by reasonable GPUs with solid bang for the buck. I feel like there are now 3 distinct categories in the PC VR headset market. First, we have the old guard. Large, heavy headsets below 110 field of view, which is most of them, but the VR1 in terms of modern headsets. Unless you have a standalone device, most large, heavy headsets don't need to exist anymore. Goodbye. There's no reason for them to even be here. Then we have the small micro LEDs in the 95 to 108 horizontal field of view range. The initial Beyond was disruptive, but now the Meg and X and the Beyond 2 have arrived, and they now handle the needs of mainstream PCVR users. Micro OLEDs have arrived and are ready for mainstream use. Finally, we have the wider field of view large headsets, 120 to 140 field of view. I think this is really the biggest reality check. They're currently an uphill battle. And even though they pretty well demand a 5090 today and will hopefully be unleashed more in the future by a 6090, they're not future-proof. Aspheric lens headsets are on borrowed time. What the Beyond 2 proved was that a solid field of view was possible right now with the smallest 1-inch micro OLED display. And that we have an inflection point where small micro OLED headsets are outperforming larger headsets in key areas it was once considered a compromise. Between now and the release of the 6090, wider field of view pancake lenses will emerge, and they will have smaller distortion profiles than aspheric lenses, meaning they'll get better performance out of those 6090s or even work well with 5090s. And they'll do it in a much smaller, lighter package with deeper blacks, better color without pupil swim or heavyweight aspheric designs. I will happily skip the 5090 and enjoy my Beyond 2 while waiting for these advancements to come to fruition. I don't know about you. Now I'm going to go off script. My apologies to Arthur at Somnium VR1. I could never wear a headset like that. There is no way I can ever wear a large headset ever again. I'm ruined for them, period. And for the moment, there are people running the Beyond 2s with AMDs and many different levels of NVIDIA GPUs and running it well enough to enjoy them and not feel like they're forever in search of the next GPU to unlock their potential. I just don't see the point anymore in pushing the edge where you're just always waiting to unlock the next little bit. When you can have something that is so comfortable and works so well now on reasonable GPUs, I just don't get it anymore. You can call that a rant, but I don't know why people are persecuting themselves anymore. I mean, really, when you're saying, okay, I'm buying a headset and I need to get some unobtainium GPU that's going to cost me, with all the markups today, $2,500, $3,000, just so that I can drive it at a half-decent GPU level and use some of its resolution, but still not being able to crank it all the way up. And then think it's future-proof because, well, in a couple of years from now, I can spend another $2,500 to $3,500 and finally get to see what it's capable of. And by then, all this other stuff is going to keep evolving. Anyway, I just don't see it. This thing is great, and I'm enjoying it a lot. And I'm not trying to sell these headsets. I think the Meg and X looks like a good product as well. And I think for a lot of people, it'll be a good match. Some people will consider the no refund policy a deal breaker. Some might have an issue with the field of view. For the people who don't, and don't mind the price, I'm sure it's great. And I think the bigger picture here is more just the obsolescence of these dinosaurs. They're all going to look like rotary phones to us compared to our mobile phones pretty soon. And this is where the future lies. But it's here now. So, I don't normally go off script anymore, but this is something it bothers me. The angst that people have trying to get something they can use. And yeah, I don't have anything more to add. I hope this helps in some way. I'm not trying to sell anything. And I know a lot of people have a lot of different headsets. And this doesn't suddenly make what you're using now not work. And it doesn't mean you can suddenly afford everything. But for me, at this point in time, I consider this the perfect right now headset that can be driven with a reasonable GPU. And even though I could afford to buy a 5090 and whatever else is coming down the market, I don't feel right about it. It feels like a waste to me. And when something like this runs so well on what I've got now, I'm just going to keep going with that until there's a really big jump. And I don't see anything being offered today or coming out shortly to be a really big jump. Now, the Deckard is coming out soon. That's a completely different ball of wax. It'll probably be a standalone device with connectivity to your PC, so it'll run dual modes better than a Quest does, with its additional compression. And I'm sure it'll be a nice headset. But I don't think there's any way it'll match the current small micro OLEDs. So I will be curious to see what they come up with, but I don't see myself as picking these things up. And also, I'm not a VR headset reviewer. I've been talking, I talk about what I'm enthusiastic about, what I'm enjoying in the hobby. I've had a number of VR headsets, but I'm not going to review everything that comes out. And I simply have no interest in any large form factor headsets ever again. I'd be happy to see a Magnex up close, or similar smaller micro OLED headsets that come down the line. But I have absolutely zero interest in ever wearing one of these again. And I consider that part of the market dead to me. So those are my personal priorities and thoughts, but I just don't see where these are relevant anymore. I really don't. So on that note, have a good day.